I'm Amanda Jane Woodall and welcome to my fashion school. So in this series, I'm going to be talking to you about people who I consider as British fashion icons. I have conducted years of research to come to my conclusions, as well as seeking advice from other professionals and non-professionals of different age ranges to see what their opinions are. The majority of my research has come from interviews with the subject themselves, and this is so I can give you the most authentic version of their life story. However, I understand that history can be interpreted in different ways. So if you have any comments to make, then please add to the conversation in a polite and sensible way. So today, the focus of our lesson is going to be the multi-talented musician, Boy George. Family and early years. So George grew up in a large Irish family with 4 brothers and 1 sister, and he describes his childhood as being both brilliant and sadly traumatic because his dad was prone to violent outbursts, although he viewed his mum as a very strong person who managed for a long time to keep the household together. However, he loved both his parents and spent time travelling with them once he had reached the height of his fame. His dress sense was outrageous from a very young age, and he was obsessed with David Bowie, and he even camped outside his house at 10 years old because Bowie had shown him that it was okay to be different. As a teenager, he would covertly go to the betting shop with his dad, and with the secret winnings, he would bribe himself items from Vivienne Westwood. He came out to his parents as gay at 15, and in the 70s, homophobia was rife and being a homosexual was very dangerous, and his parents were very concerned for George's safety. So often he would have to sneak out of the house in his more risque outfits as they had imposed some limits to keep him safe. At the age of 18, he was given a job in nightclub The Blitz, and he found a place for his outrageous and non-conformist fashion sense. The club owners were pioneers of a new subculture which was later labelled by the media as New Romantics. The club played a mixture of bohemia, glam rock and electro synth pop, and the fashion sense was a similar mix of different ideas. And George experimented with painting himself in bright colours, large dramatic hairstyles, as well as cultural dress and historical references. The clothing aspect at the club was so competitive that you could be refused entry if you weren't seen as creative enough. The style also had an element of DIY to it, sometimes using materials from the everyday that were grotesque or ridiculous. Second-hand clothing shops were an important part of the culture, as you could find very unique garments. However, Vivienne Westwood was the status symbol, and George indulged in this as often as he could. George would steal from the bags of customers of the nightclub to fund his clothing and makeup habits, and many of the attendees of the club lived in squats, including George, with little amenities or money. This culture was a dichotomy of nighttime decadence and daytime poverty. His bold and gender-fluid looks began to gain attention from the media, and he appeared on a TV series called Something Else, where he was questioned on why he chose such attention-seeking garments, to which he responded, "Because I want to." Culture Club. being scouted by Malcolm McLaren for another band, he decided to form his own band, which was named Culture Club. They produced unique sounding soul music, and George was signed by Richard Branson at the age of just 20. Branson was impressed by the music style as well as George's fashion sense. But the band's fame grew in 1982 when they appeared on the music show Top of the Pops, and George's androgynous look, where he wore makeup, braids and baggy smocked clothing, caused mass fascination with his gender identity. The media were openly homophobic, trying to put a label on who George was. And even the BBC refused to interview George, making transphobic comments due to him not fitting into the masculine or feminine stereotype. And although he was bullied, mocked and threatened, much of the public fell in love with his style and his beautiful singing voice. And a craze for young girls to copy this iconic style swept across British youth culture. The band and their music became popular worldwide, although they were still banned from some countries and even had to wear bulletproof vests due to death threats. George's life in the band was very turbulent, and this was due to his relationship with a fellow member of the band. And although this relationship created some great song lyrics, it also caused friction and violence within the band. And the breakup of this relationship, as well as the pressures of fame, led George into substance abuse, controversy and reclaiming his identity. This sad spiral for George took a toll on his physical appearance, and this showed itself in him becoming thin and erratically dressed in sometimes horrifying costumes that concerned his friends, his relatives and the public. His family and management provided a lot of support during these struggles. But it wasn't until 2008 that George eventually became clean, and this was due to a shocking event that saw him imprisoned for 4 months. And again, this period in George's life gave the media room to scrutinise him due to his fluctuation in weight and appearing to have lost the creativity that he was known for. However, a newly clean George began to rebuild his identity, being seen again in his signature makeup, large hats and bright and bold colours. He then successfully began to make music and started touring and working again on British TV. But a standout fashion moment for George was when he was the muse and lyricist for the musical Taboo. And Taboo documents the journey of the Blitz kids characters, as well as looking at the artist Lee Bowery, who also had an exaggerated dress sense which gained him attention as an artist and performer. The musical is cynical and theatrical in its portrayal of the Blitz kids characters, and this caused some debate amongst the original people who saw themselves as caricatures. It documents the absurdity, competitiveness and ambition of the late 70s and early 80s that George had been a driving force in, and the costumes are recreated to be as similar as possible to these iconic fashion moments. Legacy. Boy George has earned his place as a British fashion icon because he refused to be closeted and spoke openly about his homosexuality, using fashion as a tool to express himself. And this has left a lasting impact on British society, as we have learned to be more tolerant of gay identity and queer culture. He is still a big inspiration for performers, artists and designers, and this is because he showed us the way to be brave and ambitious even if we are facing discrimination. So we have come to the end of this video, but I will see you again in my follow-up videos where I will show you how to sew your own unique garments, as well as talking you through some more of the British style icons. And let me know in the comments if there's anyone you are hoping to see. Designers and artists, and this is due to his interpretive dance. Put your hand